Hello, I am Adam,
And I'm Adrian.
and welcome to Cast from the Crypt.
Long time no speak.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute, We had the holidays, we had the new year. Happy 2022, by the way.
What a way to start off the year.
Yeah, we are kicking off the new year with a sleeper hit
That's
called
generous.
well, it's called Lifeforce. And one thing that surprised me about this movie is it is directed by Tobe Hooper.
Yes, who, of course, was one half of the script for Texas Chainsaw Massacre and was the director.
Yeah, amongst other acclaims.
Yes, he did also direct Poltergeist, right?
Yes, he also directed Poltergeist.
Right, but I think Spielberg wrote and produced Poltergeist. Um, Actually, never mind. He didn't write this movie. I was under the impression that he did, but yeah, he was just directing for this one. But nonetheless, quite the project to have under your belt.
Yeah, so I saw this movie. The thing that enticed me was the cover. They say don't judge a book by its cover, but I judge many movies by their cover.
Oh, you have to.
How have you seen the artwork for this?
I've actually got it up right now.
The poster. There's two, and one is more we'll say shocking than the other one.
Well, I've seen, and I've got the one of the. There's an open eye just staring down at the earth, and it says, "In the blink of an eye, the terror begins."
Yes, that is the one that I think they show off more because the other one is explicit. But the one I saw was of some naked women strapped to rocket ships zooming through space. I don't know if you've seen this image.
I have not.
It's what roped me in.
Oh wow, I've got it up now.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
I like that this vessel does not exist in the movie.
No, yeah, they just wanted to show off. They wanted to advertise a big part of what the movie is about, and that is, of course, naked women.
Yeah, there is a lot of nudity in this movie. And there are several, I guess, alien life forms in the movie. Two of them are men. Of course, you never see the men naked. You see the woman naked the entire movie. And they do not spare any part of her from the camera.
No, it feels like this is like some strange like 1980s New York photo shoot for this woman. Like they're getting every possible angle of this naked woman.
Yeah, it's absurd. Uh, it's not like crazy gratuitous, but it is just incredibly uneven. Because again, you could tell that they do not care about the men in the movie,
Yeah.
right? You clearly had a man behind the camera in this movie.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I think that in multiple ways becomes very apparent throughout the movie.
yeah, absolutely.
The most obvious being this naked woman. I guess I'll throw down the premise.
Please.
So I think it begins with a spaceship called the Churchill. They go to Halley's Comet, and they discover that in the tail of the comet is actually this like 15-mile long spaceship, this alien vessel. And they go to investigate it, and they find a bunch of what appear to be dead aliens that look like giant bats. But at the center of the spaceship, there are naked humans, or what appear to be humans, encased in these strange glass pillars. And they're all sort of at different levels, and the pillar that juts out the most is this naked woman. And this opening scene really impressed me. This spaceship they go into, the practical effects are really good. They
Yeah.
really must have spent a lot of time building a set, building all these props, and building these aliens, these mummified aliens.
Yeah, I completely agree. The first quarter, I'd say, of this movie, that's a little generous. The first, I guess, 15 minutes of this movie, I was really pleased. Like you said, the practical effects were actually pretty good for a movie I had never heard of prior to you talking to me about it. Um, I was really into the wide shots of space. The portrayal of Halley's Comet is really visually interesting. Um, I was digging it. I mean, I thought it was pretty cool, and I like the bat-like mummies that they see. They look really interesting, and the way the finger breaks off when one of the astronauts grabs it. Uh, I was really enjoying the practical effects here
Yeah,
early on.
yeah, and one of the things that you can take for granted the easiest, but I think is really the most impressive, is the fact that they're in space and they're in astronaut suits. It's zero gravity, so they have to
Hmm.
somehow make it seem like it's zero gravity. They have to make these astronauts float. When they discover I'll call them pillar people. The camera does this really interesting thing where it moves. It sort of spins because if it's in space, there's no down really, and they do a really good job of somehow making the astronauts still float in a way that from any angle of this room they still seem to be still and floating, and it's really impressive. I a lot of times I was thinking like I really don't know how they could have done this, but it must have
Yeah,
taken a lot of different angles, a lot of different shots, and a lot of moving of set pieces probably.
yeah. They also, I mean, it should be noted, they had a pretty large budget too, considering this being a pretty low grade sci-fi film, uh, based off of a novel that I don't think was hugely successful. Uh, $25 million is nothing to scoff at. So they had the money, and it shows in most of the film. This movie doesn't look awful. I've seen movies by, like, what comes to mind is Wishmaster by Wes Craven. That movie I think was made around the same time, and the effects are comparable. And I'm pretty sure it had much larger budget. So the effects are not horrible in this movie. There are some laughable moments, but for the most part, they're pretty good in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the camera work is most impressive here at the beginning in space. But
Yeah,
after they return to Earth and the plot continues, not as much money is being thrown into these scenes, of course. It's on Earth. You don't have to do so much with the set, but they continue to have practical effects and creatures and monsters and zombies for the rest of the movie, and I love all of them. I really think the practical effects are consistently good. There's a few times they have to use like computer generated effects, and it being 1985 and them not having like Jurassic Park budgets, it looks
right.
a little bad, but it's I think better than what I would have expected this movie to have done with CGI.
Yeah, I agree. I was not expecting much. So, for this movie to get you into the action in the first 6 minutes, you meet the aliens of this film in within the first 10 minutes of the movie, which I think is fantastic. And B, to have effects that are, again, especially in the beginning, the space stuff, effects that are not bad at all. In fact, I'd say pretty good. Uh, I got a lot more than I bargained for early on in the film. I was impressed.
Yeah. Now this film begins with this alien spaceship with astronauts. It's very much a sci-fi. But this movie is like so many different movies wrapped up into one.
Yeah.
After this scene, after they take this glass pillar woman back to their ship, we now see the rest of the movie from Earth's perspective. The ship is somehow destroyed and burned, and only one crew member survives. He gets in an escape pod and leaves, and the only thing they can find is this woman. So they take her to a lab and they're doing tests, and she wakes up and immediately kisses the man that's like in the room working on her. And when she does this, she sucks out his life force. Hence the name of the movie. And for the rest of the movie, it's this vampire plot. She's like a space vampire. And this is a big shift from the aliens, I think.
Yeah, it's massive. And it's incredibly jarring.
Yeah.
And it's not even the biggest shift in the movie. Because we learn that, she of course can suck out the life force of other beings, namely men. That's who she targets specifically. But then you start to learn more things, right? Their victims are not actually dead. They are now converted into vampires who also need to suck life force. And the movie just keeps going. I mean, it takes you on quite the ride. And it does so for the full 2 hours.
Yeah.
I will say, well, actually, this is not true as I'm saying it, but I was going to say that near 2 hour runtime for me is the worst part of this movie.
It just feels like so much happens. By the end of the movie, you're sitting there like, I don't even know what to make of all of that. So much. It's like watching 4 movies.
Yeah, there are movies in which so much happens in a short period of time and it's incredibly effective. This is a movie where an incredible amount of things happen in an incredible amount of time, and you have to shave after watching it.
You really do. I think some things could have been cut, some things could have been done a little shorter. It feels like, like we said, there's a lot of shifts where this movie turns into different movies, and I feel like it's uneven each mini movie. They could have maybe paced it better. I think it's poorly paced.
Yeah, I agree. This movie has a great and shocking first 15 to 20 minutes. And then it's pretty much a steady nosedive from there. Whenever you first told me about it and I looked it up, I was excited because I saw that Patrick Stewart was in it.
Yeah.
And you look up this movie and it's so much. Like, it says on every webpage, Patrick Stewart, starring Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart's in this movie for 15 minutes.
Oh, if even that. Yeah, he's such a minor, unimportant character, too.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I don't even know why he agreed to do this. That $25 million budget, I wouldn't be surprised if 20 of that went to him.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I guess getting a little more into it, when she sucks the life force out of this first guy, he's like turned into a mummy, like a withered 1,000-year-old corpse. And I really like it. It's a very interesting prop they've made, this dummy, this little man, and I didn't think he would come back to life, but shortly after, another man is in the room near the body doing tests on it when his little mummy eyes, flash open, and he sucks out that guy's life force. And then as he does that, he unmummifies and turns back into the normal looking guy. And the scene where they do this is like really impressive to me. The makeup and prop pieces they have to use to make this corpse turn into a man is great. I was taken aback. I did not think, once again, that this movie would have such good effects.
Yeah, I agree. They had a cool effect of you could tell it's not incredibly well synced up. There are some errors in like the audio mixing of it, but I really enjoy that hollow, almost vibrating breath that the mummified guard was letting out while he was on the table as he started to wake up, and his eyes are sort of glossed over and they're moving all over the room. It's a really cool practical effect. Yeah, uh, props to them for that. It's shortly after this moment that they start to sort of expand on, who the vampires are, what they can do, and it's where the movie starts to get a bit more harebrained.
Yeah. I love the scenes on the spaceship. I love these scenes in this lab because there's quite a few. There's a lot of action in these scenes. And then after that, it's this like detective movie. They're trying to find the vampire woman, and it gets really dull really quick. It can compared to the fast-paced action of these first 30-ish minutes. The middle bit of this movie is very slow.
Yeah, it starts to get really bogged down once they. There's for me, the shift happened when the two male vampires wake up and they start to escape. That's when they call in guards that have, assault rifles, and there's these hilariously framed shots that like leave everything exposed other than the two male vampires' penises. Like there's like a shard of glass that just like conveniently covers their junk. And you do find out that bullets can kill these things. The guards fill them with holes using their AR-15s or whatever they are, and the vampires
They're
do die.
AUGs. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, what are they?
AUGs. I think you've played Black Ops Zombies.
You're
enough
right.
to know
You're right. My Black Ops is a bit rusty, I suppose. But yeah, they do die, and I think they actually end up killing them with grenades by the end of it.
Yeah, this scene is hilarious. They wake up and then the guards immediately blast them with everything they had, with these machine guns, with grenades, and the whole scene is just this lab room being destroyed, ripped apart by shrapnel and bullets, and it really feels like overkill.
Yeah, and again, this is an incredibly large and jarring shift. I mean, if the beginning of this movie was akin to 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is generous, but I'm just throwing that out there. This movie, it all of a sudden you jump into Terminator. I mean, that's what we're talking. The shift is crazy.
Yeah, it is. What I say is, this movie begins as a sci-fi, turns into a vampire movie, turns into this detective movie where they have to find this criminal, and then the finale, it's a zombie movie. And all that happens in 2 hours, and it's amazing. It really is amazing.
That's a great description.
Yeah.
The end of the movie, I was like, am I watching a Resident Evil prequel?
It really, it feels like Resident Evil in London.
I wanted to ask you, had your grandpa seen this movie?
Oh, man. So I began watching this movie. I didn't get 1 minute into it when I noticed this poster of this naked woman strapped to a rocket. And that image alone made me think, my grandfather has probably seen this movie. And he kept an archaic version of Letterbox. He has 6, and one is missing, but he has 6 tomes that are like easily 600 pages each of alphabetically every movie he's seen. He would write it down, write down the year, write a short description, and write a 1 or 2 word opinion on it. And this movie was one of the very rare, very few movies where he simply wrote excellent.
Wow. Wow. He wrote excellent for this movie?
Excellent. And that makes sense. This is very much a movie he would have loved. Practical effects was like his favorite thing. It's kind of a B movie. Vampires, zombies, and naked women. So,
oh man, that is awesome. I was thinking it the whole time I was watching it. I was like, I wonder if Adam's grandfather had an opinion on this movie.
yeah, this is like the epitome of a movie he would have watched.
Yeah, yeah. What was your grandpa's name?
David.
David-esque.
It is, yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to take us off track, but I had to know.
Oh, I was gonna mention it. I had to tell you.
Yeah, that's awesome. This movie. So you watch this on Tubi as well, yeah?
Yes.
This is exactly why I have Tubi.
Absolutely.
Like, this is the kind of movie that you want to find on Tubi. For people that don't know, Tubi is like a free streaming service where this kind of just wacky B horror movie is king. You can find hundreds, if not thousands, of these on that platform. We're not sponsored, but like I have to throw that out there. And I will say, I did have fun watching this movie just because of the sheer audacity of the things happening.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, the jump across genres that this movie makes, it's really something to be beheld.
Yeah, it's you've not seen. I was gonna say you've not seen a movie like this. You've seen movies like parts of this, but you've not seen a movie that is all of this.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely not. I can firmly say, I mean, how long have we been watching movies together and recording podcasts about them?
A couple of years at least.
Yeah. And I do not believe that I've ever seen anything even remotely close to this in plot. It should be noted that this movie is adapted from a novel by Colin Wilson called The Space Vampires that was written about 9 years before
Aptly named.
this movie was made. Yeah, The Space Vampires. And Lifeforce was shot and edited with that name intact. So it was going to initially keep that name. And I will say, I think The Space Vampires is the best name for this movie. Apparently they changed it because they just thought it would do better in the box office with a I guess a name that's more high budget sounding, like Lifeforce. But really, what's in this movie? It's space vampires.
Yeah, I don't think it's as fun of a name though. I prefer Lifeforce personally.
Really?
Yeah, well, the Space Vampires is kind of like, well, I guess that is what it is. But Lifeforce, that's.
Wow.
I think Lifeforce fits too.
Say again?
Lifeforce fits. It's that's all they're about is stealing your life force.
It does. I do enjoy what this movie represents. Tobe Hooper, of course, very famous for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That was his baby. And then went on to do The Poltergeist shortly after. And that, of course, is a much more mainstream, high budget, Steven Spielberg produced film. What I like about this movie is that, and Tobe Hooper has talked about it, that it very much represented a going back to his roots, using, again, 70 millimeter film, making something campy, something that not everybody will love. But the people that will love it, like David, will love it.
Yeah, it has a very devout audience.
Right. And I know that this movie, just based off the research I've done in the last few days, I know that this movie has picked up a cult following. And it's not difficult at all to see why. Just because of how much happens and the way that it all happens.
Yeah. Now, kind of backtracking, going back to those two male vampires.
Mhm.
Did you see this coming? Because I said out loud to my brother, I bet those vampires aren't dead. I bet they took the forms of those two guards. And that is exactly what happened. I saw it coming a
Yes.
mile away.
So did I. So did I. Yeah, it it wasn't hard to tell. Um, I was having a hard time grasping the mechanics of these vampires. Does that make sense?
Well, that's because they're not consistent at all.
Yeah, it is incredibly inconsistent. In the beginning, it's much more consistent. You know, they suck out life force. Their victims have to also suck out life force, and so on.
Yeah, and this woman is she manages to do it all with the power of her alien vampire seduction. She's
Right,
irresistibly beautiful.
right. Eventually, she can all of a sudden shapeshift, uh, as can the two male guards, or excuse me, vampires that then shift into the guards. It becomes really hard to track.
Yeah, definitely hard to track. Because after she escapes and they're trying to find her, they say that she is possessing people.
Right.
And well, what is that? Makes no sense. Is she a ghost? And then, is she corporeal? She possesses people, and they say like we can't find her because she's hiding in other people, and all of her victims she's only partially sucking out their life force, so that way there's no bodies. Uh, but then they have to find her real body, which they imply is corporeal and is hidden somewhere. But first they have to find and trap her in a human body she's possessing, and that's all very convoluted and doesn't make so much sense.
No. Yeah, it really doesn't. There's also introduced at the near the end of the film an ancient weapon.
Oh my god.
uh, and they try to expand upon the lore of these space vampires, and oh man.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I could not fathom why. They had this one, like, doctor conducting the most research on the space vampires and the corpse vampires they leave in their wake. And he is described as an expert in life and death. And he's just like this occult professor. And I don't know why they let him head these experiments on these aliens. Why? Why this man? This man is a crackpot. But he does end up just like knowing things because he knows about all the lore of vampires and stuff. But they wouldn't have known that. They would not have hired this man. This man is here to progress the plot. And all that being said, he is my favorite character by far.
God, I figured.
Yeah, he's
That's
this
hilarious.
wacky occult professor. He's got this cool, like, cotton candy pink and blue tie. I love him. He's great. He's freaking great. And then he just, like, discovers this ancient weapon. But he doesn't, I don't even know if he says where he got it from. He's just, like, has this sword, and it looks like just such a toy. It's clearly, like, they bought it at a flea market. It looks so fake. Like, it's the worst prop in the movie.
Yeah. The best way I can describe it is it legitimately looks like something you could have found at Spirit Halloween.
Yeah, the hilt is, like, not big enough to be, like, a thing you'd hold with two hands, but also is too thick to hold with one hand. It's just unwieldy and weird. And I love the scene where he introduces it too. He calls I guess we'll call him the main character, the captain of the spaceship, the only survivor. This professor calls him and is like, I found out how to destroy them. You have to do it the old way. And he's saying it over one of the male vampires who's been staked to a table. and it's hilarious. They don't really give any context as to how he managed to find this vampire and slay him. But this professor is so casual about everything in this movie.
His delivery is so milquetoast.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
he's very nonchalant.
yeah, by the end of this movie, there is an apocalypse brewing. And I don't even think he bats an eye.
No, he acts like he knows what's gonna happen. He's like, well,
Right.
this is what happens with the vampires. He at one point says like vampires are real. All the vampires of old were really from Halley's Comet, and they are actually aliens. And he somehow knows all of this. Like once again, he just kind of knows everything. But whatever, he's great. I love that character. This movie did not have enough of him.
No, I agree. It really didn't. It also did not have enough of Sir Patrick Stewart because it probably couldn't afford more of Sir Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, that's true.
I will say, I mean, for the time he's in it, he gets quite the gig. I mean, the whole thing is that he is the manager of a psychiatric hospital in England, and he is possessed. They have trapped the woman alien vampire inside of his body, and that's something to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, it to watch this woman alien sexy vampire speak through the voice of or speak through the form of Patrick Stewart with her sexy voice and his Patrick Stewartness is a sight to behold.
This man is knighted.
He is a knight, yeah. Yeah. And he earned it in this movie, I think.
Yeah, I agree. They actually said that as they tapped his shoulders.
Oh, yeah.
Fun fact, actually, about this movie is that ancient weapon that they show is actually the sword that they knighted Sir Patrick Stewart with.
Yeah.
Really, really cool stuff.
Now, while this movie may not have had enough Patrick Stewart, I think it had too much of the main character. What's his name?
Carlson.
Yeah, Carlson, the one surviving astronaut of the crew, and kind of isn't really in it much for the first 15 minutes where they're in the lab, and then isn't really important in the space scenes just because he's one of an entire crew and they're all getting about equal screen time. But then after she escapes and it's a detective movie, he is suddenly like the chosen one.
Dude.
And he's not really compelling at all, and his acting is probably the worst out of all the main characters in this movie.
He legitimately looks like Steven Crowder, and his whole thing is that he is... Does he not look like Steven Crowder to you?
I don't see it, I'll be honest.
Dude, they look a lot alike. I'm telling you.
He's a lot older than Steven Crowder.
I don't know. Steven Crowder's up there. This is more time than I would like to be talking about Steven Crowder.
Yeah.
But he's just this weird looking, like, dude. He is, for some reason, American.
Yeah.
And everybody else on the ship is English.
Everybody else in the movie is English.
Yeah. They do have a brief stint in Texas. That's neither here nor there.
Crash lands in Texas.
Yeah. But they really don't explain why he is the sole American, like, on that ship. And he's, again, like you said, not compelling at all. And, like, the whole thing is that he is just obsessed with this woman, this alien woman. And he's having dreams about her, and, you know, they're all explicit, I suppose. He's like the chosen one, as you described. It doesn't make sense. And mind you, he disappears from the movie for a good while.
Yeah, and then he's so important all of a sudden. It's...
Yeah.
Once again, a really uneven part of the movie.
Not a character that you missed at all.
No, yeah, and then he's so important afterwards, and it's, you know, you're waiting to move on. But after they become a detective movie and they're trying to find her, they also introduce this police officer. He's like, I think it's the SIS, M16, the British like intelligence agency, their FBI. He's an agent of that, and he's, doing some detective work with Carlson. And he is, I think, much more compelling than Carlson, though he's not terribly interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but so the plot from, I'll say the detective portion. The plot is Carlson is psychically linked to the vampire, and he is using that link to try and find her. She is calling to him. Later we find out that she actually took this form because she took the image from his mind of what the perfect woman must be. And he keeps describing her as like the most beautiful woman that could ever exist. And there's a part where he says, "Why are you so perfect?" And she even partially sucks his life force as she's escaping, but she lets him live because of plot reasons. It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, does she love him? I don't
know. Okay, well, they say that when she took the human form, she had to give a part of her own life force to Carlson, and now she wants it back, and that's why she's calling to him to come find her. But if that were true, then why didn't she just kill him in the lab?
Yeah.
I don't know, it doesn't make much sense, but whatever. Plot. And this plot, as weird as it may seem, is in the original Bram Stoker's Dracula, in the novel, when they are finally hunting down Dracula, they're going to corner him and they're going to kill him. They do it through this character named Mina Harker, who Dracula has enthralled and is feeding off of and is slowly going to turn into a vampire. And because of this, and the fact that she's drunk his blood and he's drunk hers, they are psychically linked, and she's kind of leading the group to him. And this movie clearly takes inspiration from that, and that's the same idea here. Although, once again, it's done a little more shoddily than in Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So at the end of this detective portion, they find out this, they use this man's psychic link to find out that her last victim, the last person she possessed, went crazy and is now in a psychiatric ward. And he has to go to that psychiatric ward and find her. And that's where we're introduced to Patrick Stewart. He's the, the curator, he's in charge of the psychiatric ward. And
yeah, I think he's the hospital director.
Yeah, that's okay. There you go. Thank you. And they go into this woman's room, and it becomes very sudden, very quick, and very it escalates quickly into, once again, this strange sexual misogyny that this movie is underlined with, because of course it is. He grabs this woman and he can see into her mind, and he's like, "This woman is a masochist. She wants me to beat the information out of her." And then he smacks her in the face.
Yeah, and he's just grabbing all over her face.
Yeah, it is wild.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredibly uncomfortable, and it also goes on for 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah, and it's so sudden. They enter her room, and she's like, "Come in," and then he does that immediately. And it's like, whoa! Especially compared to how slow that whole portion of the movie had been up until this point.
Yeah, it reeks of the 80s.
It really does, yeah. Yeah, it really does. And as they're doing this, there's an orderly who's just watching, and they're just commanding him to do things, and he does. They let this guy just kind of do anything he wants, just based on him telling them that he has this psychic connection. And then we discover that this was all a ploy, and he knew all along that Patrick Stewart was actually possessed. And that's when we have that scene where they try to I don't know, exorcise Patrick Stewart. It doesn't really work. But they get on a helicopter, they start flying back to London, and Patrick Stewart is killed, and I think all the blood in his body, like, projectile leaves through his face, I
Yeah, it
think.
shoots out of his face like a super soaker.
Yeah, like a gusher. It was really, once again, intense. Really intense.
It should be noted that while they are going back to London, simultaneously the city is under attack, and there is now a wave of vampires taking over, and so they have to declare martial law.
Yeah. So as all that was happening, meanwhile in London, the male vampire was still alive and began sucking everybody's life force. And now London is a zombie apocalyptic hellscape. When they get back, like the entire city is on fire. They say martial law has been declared, but when you see the streets, it's like there is no martial law. It is just chaos. It is just zombies. And this finale, as sudden and crazy as it seems, I very much enjoyed it. We're back to the action.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
I agree.
Again.
I agree. Strongest moments in this movie by far, opening and ending.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it really hooked me back in when they start talking about this crazy sword.
Yeah. I had to do it the old way. I love that line.
The sword is made of something that they call leaded iron.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a real thing.
Yeah. And he says that you have to stab them in their power center, I think he calls it, which is just below the heart. And that's why everybody thinks you have to stake a vampire in the heart.
Right. And the finale of this movie is Carlson, who, again, is just this uninteresting person that they dusted off and brought back into the fray at the end of this movie. He tracks his female vampire love interest all the way to this cathedral, and there she is lying dramatically on the altar, and she is, I guess, preparing to leave in her spaceship. Is that what she was doing?
Yeah, so they describe her as the male vampire needs to steal the life forces, and then he sends the souls to her, and then she beams them to the ship.
Yeah.
And there's a giant blue beam of light coming from the cathedral, and we find out it's coming from her, who's at the center of the cathedral. And it's weird and sudden, and once again, the rules of these vampires are really fast and loose. But, you know, at this point, you don't care. There's zombies everywhere, so it's cool.
Yeah. While he is talking to his vampire love interest about how they share life forces and the psychic bond and all that you just mentioned, he's being followed by Colonel Kane.
Colonel Kane being the SIS agent.
And Colonel Kane ends up killing another male vampire and gives Carlson the famous sword of leaded iron. And he uses it, and it's almost like a double. I mean, I think it is a double-edged sword, right? Like it has.
It's like Darth. It looks so weird.
Yeah, I can't even describe it. But he uses that to impale both himself and her, and they're like connected and both naked. Yeah. And we get this very bright, very vibrant 80s shot where energy starts to swirl around them as they are naked and hugging with a sword poking out both of their ends. And they blow up the cathedral, St. Paul's Cathedral, to be more specific.
When Colonel Kane gets to the cathedral and enters it too, it gets real goofy. First, the male vampire's there, and he turns back into his normal form. So we get, when we first saw the mummified bat alien vampires in space, they were very darkly lit. You didn't really get to see them, and they were dead and mummified, so you didn't really get a good image of them. But when, in this scene, he turns back into his form, you get to see the alien vampire bat in his full glory, and it looks pretty cool. He's just like this gargoyle monster. But I think this is a problem that we have had, and especially you have had with movies in the past where they don't show the creature enough. He turns
Yeah.
into his horrible form and he screeches this terrible screech. And then he just stands there as Colonel Kane stabs him and he dies.
Yeah.
Immediately turns to dust. And then he gets
Oh,
into the cathedral and he looks down into this like well and he sees Carlson, and the credits refer to the alien vampire simply as the woman. So he sees Carlson and the woman just like having crazy sex and he's like, Carlson, Carlson, Carlson. He's just kind of like trying to get his attention, and then he throws the sword, and then, dramatic ending.
and that's the movie.
It's honestly kind of anticlimactic, the ending. Like, he just stabs her. They just kind of stab the vampires, and that's it. But the zombies are freaking great.
I agree.
There's many scenes. I want more zombies in the film, I think. That's my problem. There's a scene where they have to go to the Prime Minister to, like, warn him. And if you'll remember, the zombies are only zombies until they suck someone's life force. Then they're kind of healed back to their normal-looking selves. And it's really comical. The Prime Minister's, like, sweaty. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, before you do, Miss Secretary, could you come into my office? And then she does, and you hear, like, you see a flash of light, and clearly the Prime Minister is a zombie, and he's been slowly eating his cabinet members. And so they leave. And then, sadly, our professor, who's my favorite character, is also a zombie. And all the zombies are, like, unsatiably bloodthirsty. They have to eat immediately because they're zombies, and that's the one thing that compels him. But the professor, like, once again, is just, like, cool. He is a zombie. He's been turned, and he tells Colonel Kane that, and he's like, yeah, I'm a zombie now. It sucks. I'm gonna die. Here's the sword. And then he does. And I don't know why he has free will while none of the other ones do. By this point in the movie, none of the rules are consistent. But
Right.
the zombies kind of make you quit caring, because now there's zombies, now there's action, and it's great.
And as your grandfather said, excellent.
Excellent. That's Grandpa's rating is excellent.
I liked it. I can't say that I didn't. And, watching it for free, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, like you said, these B movies you find on Tubi. Usually they're garbage. Usually they're just, you turn them on and then you turn them off 5 minutes later because it's just unbearable. And this movie, well, it's interesting. It's engrossing. Just because it promises you everything under the sun, and it tries to deliver. And it's at least fun to watch it happen. Buckle up for that ride, and it is a roller coaster.
Yeah, it's certainly got more appeal than the average B movie. Because it has a budget. It has a budget. It has at least Patrick Stewart's in it. It's got what most people would consider a reputable director at the helm. So there's a few other pieces there that add to its likability. But there is a slog in the middle of this movie.
Yeah, that is definitely true, definitely noteworthy. But I would say watch this movie at least once just to experience it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, with it for free right now on Tubi, you might as well just go and burn 2 hours with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I'll be honest, I don't think I'd give it an excellent, but
I wouldn't either.
Grandpa did, so
Respect.
yeah. I guess that's all I have to say about Lifeforce.
Me too. I don't think I could talk about it for much longer.
Okay, well, thank you for joining me, Adrian.
Thank you, buddy.
And thank everybody for listening. Goodbye.